Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of Atomic Habits. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. By James Clear. Why do you want to improve your life in this way? How do you feel about your own personal limitations, and what can be done about them? We often fail to break bad habits because we lack the tools to do so. Not because we don't want to, but because we don't know how. Compounding effects from seemingly insignificant adjustments lead to the development of new habits and, ultimately, to long-term improvements. So, what are some of the ways that habits can help us in our daily routines and activities? It all comes down to being consistent. Let's say you read 2 pages of a book today and felt no better for it. In a month, you could finish several books and feel accomplished if you changed your habits and read 1 chapter each day. In contrast, if you eat a chocolate bar today, you won't gain any weight. In contrast, if you gorge on sweets every day for a month, you'll probably need to retighten your waistband. These examples demonstrate how a small daily habit, when compounded, can have a profound effect on our lives. We'll take a quick look at what James Clear has to say about habits, how we can form them, and how to make the most of them. Most of us undervalue minor improvements and indulgences, and Atomic Habits provides the most up-to-date science on what motivates us. Small changes can have a big impact. Did you know that just putting streetlights in a dark area can have a significant impact on crime? Often, a single change can have a huge impact. Dr. Ann Thorndike, for example, wished to improve the eating habits of her patients without making them make any conscious decisions. She did nothing more than redesign the food court at her hospital. Her fridges were stocked with bottles of water instead of sugary sodas next to the main cash registers. Water sales increased by 25% while soda sales fell by 11% in 3 months. It was all because the soda was hidden from view. Her hospital patients' behavior improved after she substituted water for the cue of seeing soda. In some cases, removing a trigger can have a similar effect. An incident in Iraq is described by Charles Duhigg in his book The Power of Habit. An Iraqi town was on the verge of riots when the military decided to make a single change. Rather than removing the food vendors, they simply demolished the town square. The entire riot was disrupted by this seemingly insignificant change. As the day wore on and people began to grow peckish, they made their way back to their houses to get some food. The rioters' hunger for food overtook their desire to engage in a violent protest. This shows how even the most minor changes can have a big impact. We've all been conditioned to believe that if we want radical change and improvement, we must take drastic measures. James Clear demonstrates the power of a few simple habits to bring about significant alterations in behavior. Habits, on the other hand, can be harnessed only if we first understand them. Things we do every day without giving it much thought are called habits. Habitual behavior is examined in Atomic Habits. Although we believe that most of our daily actions are the result of conscious decision-making, habits actually account for about 45% of our daily actions. In other words, we're on autopilot for nearly half of our lives. Through the use of our unconscious minds, habits automate the mundane tasks of our daily lives. Habits can free up our mental resources so that we can focus on new and innovative ideas. Habits may simplify life, but that doesn't always mean they're beneficial. Smoking, for example, is an example of this. Smokers often turn to cigarettes as a form of self-medicating. Smoking as a coping mechanism demonstrates how short-term fixes can have long-term health consequences. So, while bad habits may yield quick results, the long-term advantages of good ones are much more difficult to discern. If you're a person who likes to get things right away, this may be difficult for you. In order to change your habitual behavior, you must first understand it and then modify it. Let's take a closer look at the science of habit formation. Making habits stick with a 4-step execution plan. After a cue, a craving, a response, and finally, a reward are all part of the 4-step process described by the author. We're constantly on the lookout for cues. They're hints that there may be a reward in store for those who persevere. Hunger and the desire for pleasure go hand in hand. To receive these benefits, we must respond. Finally, the rewards are the pleasant feelings that we experience as a result of our efforts. Getting the reward is the final step in the cycle. However, the real question is, at what point does this procedure become ingrained in your routine? This question can be answered by looking at toddlers. We've all seen toddlers throw a toy on the floor over and over again in order to get a reaction. They throw more as you laugh. They relish the spotlight. So they keep doing it. Repetitive behaviors that bring immediate gratification are hardwired into the human brain. Coffee drinkers are acutely aware of this. When they wake up in the morning, this is their cue. They crave a sense of arousal. A stumble to the kitchen results in a cup of joe. Finally, they are able to enjoy a cup of coffee as a reward. After a certain amount of time and repetition, they develop the habit of identifying themselves as someone who enjoys a cup of coffee in the morning. Also, our brains are hardwired to dislike delays and snarls. Having to solve a crossword puzzle to turn on your coffee maker might make your morning ritual less routine. The term task friction has been coined by James Clear to describe this phenomenon. As a general rule, habits are easier to form when there is less resistance, and more difficult when there is more resistance. The key is to create a setting in which doing the right thing is as simple as it possibly can be for everyone involved. As we've learned about habit formation, let's look at how this process can be used for our own benefit. The 4 cornerstones of good habit cementation. It's important to lay a solid foundation before you can build on top of it. Changes in your environment can help you develop and break bad habits. In his book, James Clear argues that our actions are shaped by our surroundings. Good habits can be made to stick with the help of 4 methods. You need to make them clear, appealing, simple, and satisfying in order to achieve this. Imagine that you'd like to improve your guitar skills. To begin, make the habit cue as obvious as possible. Put your guitar in a place where you can see it and reach it easily. You'll be more likely to play it if you do this. Maybe you'd like to continue reading. Make sure to put your book on top of your pillow every morning when you make your bed. You'll be more likely to read a few pages before going to sleep if you take this step. How many extra hours a night would you like to get? Make slumber enticing for yourself. You'll want to spend more time in a place if it's visually appealing. Invest some time and energy into making your bedroom a relaxing and peaceful retreat where you'll enjoy spending time with yourself. Please answer this simple question: do you want to improve your diet? Make it as simple as possible. Reduce task friction to begin with. Anything that takes more time or effort is considered a friction. Preparing healthy meals in bulk or chopping vegetables ahead of time allows you to have a quick and easy grab-and-go snack. Finally, it should be gratifying. If you're not a fan of carrots, don't eat carrot sticks. Instead, look for healthy snacks you enjoy. It is much more likely that you will stick with something if you find yourself having fun with it. In the case of bad habits, we'll do the exact opposite. Making them difficult, unattractive, and unsatisfying is the goal. They're supposed to be hard to see. Store fast food away from children's reach. When it's cold outside, you can smoke outside. Make it more difficult to watch your television by removing the batteries from the remote control. Your ultimate goal is to make your bad habits as unsatisfying as possible. However, making a shift isn't always easy. It takes time and effort to build a house that serves as a sanctuary for good habits. In contrast to the immediate gratification of bad habits, good habits are difficult to cultivate because the rewards they provide aren't immediately appealing to you. Learning a new language or improving your skills is likely to cause you to feel frustrated at the beginning. The goal of adhering to good habits is to have faith in their progress. Playing for the long haul is the name of the game here. However, in order to cultivate good habits, we must employ effective strategies. Start and stack are the first strategies for developing good habits. It may sound trite, but the beginning is more important than the end. Many of us get carried away when we imagine big changes. In the rush to get things done, we end up doing too much too soon. As a result of the initial excitement, many people end up disappointed. We lose interest when we don't get the results we want quickly enough. If you don't start at the beginning, the task may seem overwhelming to you. Projects and goals that seem insurmountable can often cause us to feel overwhelmed. The enormity of some tasks can prevent us from even beginning the process because they seem insurmountable. 2-minute rule comes into play now. New habits should take less than 2 minutes to start, according to James Clear. To put this rule into action, think in terms of small first steps rather than the final outcome. For example, instead of focusing on being a marathon runner, focus on simply putting on your running shoes and getting started. Reading just 3 pages to finishing a book. Finishing laundry to just folding socks. Another option is stacking a new habit on top of a current habit. This strategy gives you the momentum you need to get started. Make it a daily ritual to put on your running shoes and go for a run once you've developed the habit of doing so. Do you intend to meditate on a daily basis? Make it a part of your morning routine by tying it to your coffee. Set a timer for a few minutes after the kettle has come to a boil. There is a big difference between just getting started and sticking with a plan. Get specific, synchronize, and keep track of your progress to make habits last. In the midst of a hectic schedule and lack of motivation, how can we cultivate healthy lifestyles? After a long day at the office, the last thing most of us want to do is get our bodies moving. Ronan, a student in electrical engineering, was no exception. Ronan was aware that he needed to work out more. Programming skills helped him design a synchronization program for his stationary bike and laptop. In other words, Netflix would only start playing if Ronan cycled at a specific speed. Netflix would pause if he slowed down, so he'd have to cycle faster to get through the episode he was watching right now. Motivating yourself to keep going can be as simple as combining something you want with something you don't want. The problem, however, is that our lack of clarity, not our lack of motivation, is often what prevents us from moving forward. Voters in the United States were found to care about how questions were phrased. Voters who were asked, "At what time are you going to cast your ballot?" and "How will you get to the voting station?" were more likely to get people to show up to cast their ballots than simply asking if they plan to vote. It's clear, then, that specifics are important. Think about when, where, and how you want to change things. Set a specific goal, such as telling yourself that you'll be ready for bed at 9:30 p.m. every night, rather than simply saying that you want to get more sleep. We must also include incentives in our routines if we want to maintain them. In this situation, a scoreboard strategy can be helpful. In order to maintain focus on a single task for an extended period, the scoreboard strategy is employed. Use this strategy to build up your comedy arsenal like Jerry Seinfeld did. Every time Jerry came up with a joke, he would put a big X on his calendar. He wasn't trying to come up with the best joke, rather, he was simply trying to keep the chain going and ensure that he had enough material to keep going. Simple but effective, the scoreboard strategy helps you stay on track with a project. You can use a habit tracker in the same way as Jerry. A habit tracker makes it simple to keep track of your daily routines, and it's fun to see how far you've come. You can't expect a dramatic change in your life just by making a few small changes in your behavior. Even if you make just a few small changes, they can have a big impact on your life if you turn them into habits. To sum it up, self-improvement boils down to a series of small but significant changes, according to Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is a great resource if you're hesitant to make significant alterations to your daily routine because you're afraid of failing. Changing one's life can be a frightening experience. In order to embark on a journey, one must be prepared and aware of one's own limitations. Even though we're all aware that nothing happens in a vacuum, starting somewhere is essential if you want to see real, lasting change. Instead of rushing toward the end, this book encourages you to take a series of small but meaningful steps that will lead you to long-term progress. When it comes to making changes, if you're willing to put the time and effort into it and believe in the power of your daily habits, you may find that small changes can have a big impact. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.